So today I'm going to be doing a water pump and timing chain set. Well, not today, today and tomorrow probably. I'm going to be starting it today. It's a 2008 Ford Edge with a 3.5 liter V6. And I've never done one of these, so it's going to be an adventure. I kind of got started, drained out the coolant. The drain is on the driver's side in the typical spot. Pulled out this inner fender well, just a bunch of little, I think it was 7/32 screws and all these little clips here. That was kind of a pain. And like I said, I've never done one of these, so I don't know what to expect, but I'll figure it out somehow. So I guess I'm going to start with all this upper stuff here. Upper intake manifold, intake boot, all these hoses, wiring. I know I gotta pull off both these valve covers and the front timing cover, engine mount, and I think even the bracket that the mount hooks to on the engine. I'll figure that out though as I go. But yeah, it should be fun. Probably clean up the battery for him too. It's my friend Joel here. It's his vehicle. So yeah, this is it. Ford Edge.
Chain driven.
We got all the parts here. Hopefully, I'm sure there's something that we forgot. Upper and lower intake gasket set. Valve cover gasket set, and it actually got this on Rock Auto. Most of these parts actually came off Rock Auto except that kit there. But it actually came with the grommets for little variable valve timing solenoids. I'm assuming that's what those are under there. And then the water pump, he actually went with a OEM because I guess there's issues with those going out prematurely when you use a cheap one. So you got the genuine Motorcraft. Probably a good idea considering the amount of work that it is. Front main seal for the crankshaft. And I didn't know the kit came with the two grommets, so I had them order the two grommets separately. Then we went with the Cloy's brand timing component set. Yeah, here you go. Comes with 3 tensioners. Good guides. Looks like 2 different chains, 3 different chains, 3 different guide pieces. Actually, I don't know if that, yeah, that's a guide too. That's a good brand though. I like that brand. That's what I put in my Mark 6 GTI. Good bang for your buck. So yeah, got an adventure ahead of us here. Figured I'd share it with you guys and let you see what it's gonna take. All right, now I'm gonna be pulling all this intake boot. I'm just gonna actually leave this all together, or try to anyhow. It's got 1 screw back here, and then of course your mass airflow sensor connector right here. And then I don't know what else here. Maybe PCB lines or something. Oh yeah, and then this here, it's got a little clip that you just push this way. You just kind of push on that gray part there and it pops out. And then I went ahead and I pulled out the coolant reservoir just to kind of make some space. It's always exciting when you have never worked on something before. Might be good to get this out of here too. Looks like it's your purge, evap purge maybe. I know with some of these Ford clips you push on it. Yeah, so you push on that and it actually lets you take it out. These ones here I don't think are like that though. You actually have to pop these out this way. Ford's actually pretty nice about some stuff like that, and how they have master connectors for everything, so it makes it really easy to get stuff out of your way.
Okay.
So this little guy here just has a little clip that you pull in on, and it slides right off that way. Tried pulling this here, but it's actually captured by this bolt, and I'm not getting into all that up there, so. Okay. So I just wanted to show you guys here. You got this hose back here. That was a bear to reach that clamp and to get that sucker off. And then you've also got another one back under here that was a real bear to get off. Goes on top of the intake there. And then there's also this little screw or bolt right here going to the support bracket. And I'm assuming is a support bracket here. I could probably have better lighting going on here.
Here.
Yeah, that's definitely a support bracket. And of course I unplugged the throttle body here. And it's looking like it's pretty close. I guess we'll just have to see. So I'm gonna pull these bolts out. Looks like we got 2, 4, 6 all together, I'm guessing here. And those are 5/16 or 8 mil. All right, we got the intake out. It was pretty straightforward. Just like I thought. That one bolt there, and then all the bolts on the top. And it just kind of snaked out of there. Wasn't too bad. I did go ahead and take some compressed air and blow all the dust off, and then now I'm gonna shove some rags down in here. Very important step, just to make sure junk doesn't get down in the engine. All right, now I think I'm gonna try to get all these wires out of the way. You got your injector wires. Went ahead and unplug that. I'm gonna get this out of the way and try to get this out of the way here and get all these popped up off of those bolts. They just kind of go down on there. Little guy here actually ended up staying, and it just slid off this way. And I still don't know how I got the thing off, but I just shoved a screwdriver underneath from that side, like that, and it popped, it slid off, like magic.
You're on.
So I went ahead and pulled the coils off. Those are just some 5/16 8 mil bolts, holding those on. And I recommended, you know, since it takes so much work to get to those back ones, we're gonna go ahead and do spark plugs in it as well while we have it opened up. I took some compressed air and kind of blew everything off just to make sure junk doesn't fall down inside the valve cover when I take it off of there. So now I'm getting ready. I was hoping to get these wires a little more out of the way, but it's just proven to be more of a pain than I can tolerate this late at night after working all day. And these are a 10 mil here, 10 mil deep that you'll need. Kind of break these loose. Just got the valve covers off. That was a bear. I had a really tough time with this little connector back here. This little blue connector. Can you shine that light up down a little better? It has this little plastic clip here that shoves down into just a through hole. It's just one of those shove it in once type of clips. And I couldn't see back there to see how it came off, but it looks like you actually unhook that here, that little notch there, and you'd slide it down. I ended up breaking it to get it off, but I got it off. I was just happy to get it off. by the time I got done messing with it. But here you go. I didn't really bother getting the wires out of the way any more than that. So now I'm taking off the harmonic balancer, and I was kind of worried about what kind of tool I was going to need on this. First off, of course, you got to pull the bolt. I was able to do that with my M18 brushless little impact and an 18 mil 6-point socket. But for as far as the puller goes, I'm using this Mac harmonic balancer puller that's actually made for Chrysler. So it's gonna actually work though. The little arms will twist right around and hook under here, and they fit. And then I'm gonna use this shorter push rod of the two. So I tried pulling it right off as soon as I undid the bolt, and it's on there solid. So and it worked. So you got these little holes here, these little threaded holes, and I stuck a bolt in this one. You've also got one up here, one up there that I don't know if that's what that one's for, but you can run your timing cover bolts into those and pull that sucker loose. It helps break that silicone bond. Got the timing cover off, but there's just no way the sucker is going to come out, so I just went ahead and unloosened this, got it out of my way. Possibly might have to pull it completely out and get that hose. I'm trying not to make a big mess with this power steering fluid, so I may end up having to take that out though and get this big hose kind of wrapped around out of the way. But I'm definitely gonna have to undo these wires, and I want to show you guys here. You just throw a little screwdriver under there, a little tiny flat blade screwdriver, and just kind of lift up and pull. And this little lever will pull it right out for you. And we can get these out of our way, possibly. May end up having to pull this reservoir as well. I was trying to avoid that. This timing cover is gigantic though. This thing is huge. Then of course we got to get it back in and without disrupting our silicone. We've also got this AC line right in the way. It's got to come out though, somehow. But yeah, we'll probably put the silicone on the engine block, I guess, so that we can avoid damaging it, getting this in there. This thing is huge though. Yeah. Woo! Look at that big old FOMO-co. Dang it, Ford, I tell you what. They don't mess around with making stuff hard to work on. It's like I said earlier, the common theme is just don't give up. Keep pushing forward. And there's the reason right there. Where's that light at?
You got it?
Yeah. Give me that light, would you? There is the reason we're doing this, is because of that pesky water pump that drives off the chain. That's what initiated this whole stinking process. You can kind of see down in the pan there. It's kind of cruddy. It's got 200,000 miles on it though. And then I'll show you guys later, but kind of talk about it real quick here. We got that special tool that goes right down in there, right on these flats. and that's what's going to hold it. So before we undo any of these cams, the cam timing chain, tensioner and all that, we're going to put those special tools in to hold those so they don't move at all. And then that'll allow us to torque down these small, here, hold that, would you, Joel?
Yeah.
These small sprockets. And I'll show you guys later, but essentially we're going to have to get this bolt out. This, I think it's a Torx headed bolt. And of course replace it, it's a stretch bolt. So we'll take these, both of these small sprockets off so we can get to this back chain, this little small chain and tensioner on both of these. But from what I've heard, you don't actually have to pull this one. So we're just going to get the 2 stretch bolts for these small sprockets. And then of course we're going to have to pull this variable valve timing assembly out. I don't know what that's going to take yet, but those are going to have to come out because it's directly in the way. When you're scraping, before you scrape the silicone, you're going to want to just cram that full of rags just so all your silicone chunkies don't go down inside the pan. And now we're just going to scrape off all this silicone, kind of get it prepped and cleaned. And then we're still going to be waiting on the specialty kit from Amazon for the camshaft holder. And there's some other stuff we're going to get from the store, some new spark plugs, thermostat and gasket. What else was there? Maybe that was it. Some silicone too. We're going to need some silicone. Remember that, Joel?
All right.
Looks like that's probably your oil pump right there. I see the pickup tube hooking up to the bottom of it. I've got the engine down right now, most of the way. There's your tensioner for the main chain. You got a big guide there that hooks to that. That looks like we have to pull that variable valve timing assembly out even to get to the bolt that holds that in, the pivot bolt. You got that little guide up there. Then this big stationary guide here. And then our water pump, our dreaded water pump. So Joel was pretty fortunate. It wasn't leaking into the engine on this. It was just leaking externally. So there must be a weep hole somewhere on the block, just to alert you to the fact that it's leaking out of the seal on the bearing or wherever it leaks. Here's my set that I got on Amazon, 25 bucks, 24 and some change. It's got the specialty tool, spline drive socket for those camshaft sprocket bolts, the 2 smaller ones that are gonna have to be removed. I don't recall what this little piece is for, but I'll figure that out as I go. And so these are just a jig, and I'll show you here real fast. So obviously, like any other engine, you're going to want to get it as close to top dead center as you can before you tear into this. And so a lot of times you'll go to put these on and they just won't fit because they're not perfectly aligned. Here, hold that. So what I do is I take it's a 7/8, I think 22 is actually the size, 22 mil. But you just turn this until you get that thing to slide down in there. It's actually a really precise fit. And once it slides all the way down, you'll know that it's in there all the way. As soon as it's touching the valve cover surface there at the top of the head. And it's really difficult to turn those. This back one, I'm probably going to have to, if it's not lined up perfect, which I doubt it is, probably have to lower this engine way down, try to make some room. But I really had to pull on that sucker to turn it because we don't have the harmonic balancer on now, so there's no bolt to grab onto to turn it conveniently. Next step, after getting the chain out of the way, I took the tensioner off, detensioned it, snaked it out of there. I did make a little mark, cleaned off the case and made a mark where the little notch in the bottom gear or sprocket lines up with the back of the engine block. And so now I'm going to take these off, all these guides. Your guide that pivots and tensions this chain just slides right off. But these other ones you're going to have to unbolt. It's a 8mm or 5/16. This one's a little tough to get to there, that bolt, so I'm going to have to use a wrench on that one. But we've got to get these out of the way in order to get to that pump. So we'll get that done. And then you got another one right here. I just want to make sure and look through them, make sure which one goes where and how it's going to go before we pull these off. You can always take pictures as well. That's saved me so many times in the past, just snapping some quick pictures. Okay, you have this little tab here you can pry on. Did a double check, made sure I had all the bolts out, but it's going to run water all in there. I went ahead and left my paper towels down there, but you know, there's still a lot of water that's going to drain out. But I cram that with paper towels, but some's still going to get into that oil pan unless you were to like tape a bag under there or something. But I got this guy kind of broke loose. It's got a perfect little spot just made for it right there. Got it broken loose. It's got locator pins. But there you go. Here, hold that, would you? And so it's kind of hard to show it really, but it's got a lot of play. It was actually rubbing on the case here. It's got these little thrust washer things that spin around, but it's actually rubbing on right there because the bearing's so bad. That's what happens. And your impeller, it's hard to tell if that was, yeah, see, your impeller was busting off too. It was hitting and busting off. See that? That one's gone. That one's gone. These have been rubbing. And then these corners are busted off. So that sucker was really getting ready to go. You can see it was rubbing right in there too. I don't know if you can see that, but it was rubbing on the inside there. Can you see it? Yeah. So those plastic pieces are somewhere in your engine, or I don't know. We'll never know. Want to do a little comparison here. You can see the crazy angle. So turning this thing by hand, you'll get it so far and then it just stops. I mean, that thing was like ready to just grenade on you in there. You're so fortunate that we decided to do this. You turn it so far and then those bearings just lock up. So here's the new updated one. It's got the double seals there, which is nice. It's also got the cast iron for the impeller. But you know, if this does go out and it gets that play in it enough that it allows it to rub, then you're gonna have cast iron rubbing on your aluminum block. So we're just gonna go around, kind of in the same pattern. Starting from the middle and radiating out. And usually once I do this, I'll just go around in a circle and make sure I didn't miss any bolts. And this end. And it's actually a fair amount of torque for these little bolts. It doesn't seem like a lot until you feel it on the end of this long torque wrench. Okay, Okay, nothing under there. I might still add a tiny bit with my hand. Do that. Now I'm going to break loose this front one. These things are really tight. It takes a lot of torque to get it broken loose. And so we got to do this so that we can get that little chain off of there. And you get a new bolt, but you reuse that big old thick washer. And the new updated bolts that we got from Napa are actually a hex head. So I don't think that's going to interfere with this though. And then from what I've seen, you just push down on this a little and just work that thing off. It's such a short chain, it doesn't give you any room to do it. You can hear the oil squirting out as you push down. It's definitely tight. I've heard some guys will have one person push down with the screwdriver on that, but I definitely had to squish that oil out of it. They must have ran Pennzoil in this at some point. I don't know if they still do it, but that's what Jiffy Lube used to use as their oil. And I've seen engines where the engine went bad. It was an old Chrysler 300, I think. This was years ago when I was still a professional auto mechanic. And they had used Pennzoil. They went to Jiffy Lube from the time it was new. And when I pulled off the valve cover, look right here, it was shaped like the valve cover with the carbon buildup. And that's what caused the engine to fail, was extreme carbon buildup inside the engine. And it wouldn't allow the oil to drain back down into the crankcase, into the oil pan. So the engine died at like, I think 80,000 miles running Pennzoil. So maybe they've changed their formulation since then. That was like 20 years ago now. Or, yeah, almost 20 years ago now. But I still would never run it, personally. I went ahead and put these tensioners on already. And it's impossible to put the wrong one in the wrong spot. They're two different tensioners. They're like flipped mirror image. And again, that's 89 inch-pounds, so basically 10 newton meters, or 7.5 foot-pounds, 7.4 to be precise. I want to show you guys something here. Here's our mark that this colored link is going to go to. So these are facing up, so it's going to be the two closest links. I'm going to face those away from the front of the engine, or you could face them towards the front of the engine. It doesn't really make a difference, whichever one's easier for you to see. But what I did is I went ahead and transferred the mark from this dot. I transferred it up. Get out here in the light where you can see it, so that I have something, a good visual aid to line up those colored links with. And I did that on both of these. See if I can see it here. So that I've got something to line up that dot. All right. So working this thing on there, I kind of got it on, but I'll show you guys real quick. There's my colored link right there. And then it's kind of hard to see from this angle, but there's that back colored link lined up with my mark, my Sharpie mark. And then you just kind of work it over that carefully. And then now it's time to put the bolt in and torque it down. All right, I'm gonna put on this front sprocket and little chain here. There's your two colored links. This one goes on the main in the back, and then this would go on the front. Transferred my mark from the little dot here. This sprocket faces this way, installed. And then I put a mark here as well, just as a visual aid. And you're gonna wanna make sure both of these guides for your main timing chain are actually not installed before you put this chain on. If you install those like I did ahead of time, then you'll just have to pull them back off. So don't do that. Leave those off until you get this done. Where'd my dang links go? There it is. So line that colored link up with the mark. Confirm that it's in line with the dot right there. There it is. Get your sprocket on there the right direction, hopefully. Almost need 3 hands on some of this stuff. Okay, I'm 1 link off there. And it's a little snug getting this on there. Probably supposed to do both of them at the same time, but we got it off this way. And I did the back one already, so it should get on there. There it goes. Lift that chain up over that plastic guide that's got a little lip there in the front, little tiny nub. Alright, and then now that you know you're all lined up, both the links are lined up where they're supposed to be. It's tough to see the dot on that one. Oh, it's because it's out here. But we're lined up with it. Alright, now I want to talk about the torque sequence for this. So I got the new bolt. There's the Napa part number. The new one's a hex head instead of this here. These are torque to yield or stretch bolts. So I found some conflicting information. Basically, the one I'm going to go with is oil up the face of this, not the threads. Have the threads be dry. Reuse your old washer. And then we're going to tighten it down to 30 foot-pounds initially, or 40 Newton meters, whichever one you want to go by. And then back it off a full 1 revolution. And then retighten it to 18 foot-pounds. And then go an additional 180 degrees to stretch it, and then you're done. And these are a torque to yield bolt, so we're going to go ahead and torque this. Need to make sure this stays in there, our little holder tool. It's a lot of torque we're going to put once we're to the final step. So we're going to start out at 30 foot-pounds. Then we're going to back it off a full turn. So just go 1 full turn, snug it back down by hand. Then we're going to go to 18 foot-pounds next. Which is right there. Then we're going to go a full 180 degrees past. And that's a little tricky to be able to see this to go that 180 degrees. So what I'm going to do here to do that, make it a little easier on me, I'm going to make a mark here on the top, transfer that to my socket, and then I'm going to come around to the other side of that mark, 180 degrees off, the best I can. And I'm just going to make another mark, something I'll be able to see when it comes around to that 180 mark and lines up with my initial mark. So that shows me where to start and where to finish. Make sure our tool's in there good. And just make sure you stay on the same position you started on with your socket in there. Don't let it come off. And there we are, 180 degrees. My mark's a little light on the socket and the lighting's a little funky, but brought it right around. And then that's done. My cat decided to come out and help me this morning. Getting ready to put this on, and I figured I'd show you the colored links. You got the gold one down there and then the two dark like blue ones here. So those are going to be your two upper sprockets, and that's going to be your bottom sprocket. Hold that, would you? So your bottom sprocket has that little divot there, and earlier on in this project I went ahead and put a Sharpie mark. I got my two other guides back in that I had to take back out to get this guy here. I pulled my pins, my retainer pins that hold the tensioners in. Double checked my torque on everything. And so now I'm going to thread this chain on here and try to get everything lined up. Where'd those two go? There's one of them. Let's see if we're lined up here, and we're not. Oh, went around the wrong side of that guy. That'd mess it up. Okay. Gotta work that one more link over. All right. Trying to show this here. You can kind of see it, the dot there. Sorry about the horrible lighting. And the dot there lined up. That's how it goes around the guides, behind and in front. Here you go. Doesn't go around that bolt, pretty sure. Take your time. Work it around there. one that's a little tight to actually go on there with the tensioner in place. So I think I'm going to actually have to pull that tensioner back off. Not a huge deal. I guess the other option might be to just pull this, slide this guide out of here. We can try that. It's always interesting when it's something you've never worked on. Okay, that one doesn't want to go right now. All right, I was able to get that thing on there. It was just a tiny bit off where we had started from because I didn't have the alignment tool yet. I had to order that. So what I ended up doing, it was like half of a link off, if that, a little less than half of a link. So what I did is I just very carefully, without touching the actual crankshaft, just touching the sprocket, that ledge on there, I just really lightly squeezed in, and it got that crankshaft to turn backwards a tiny bit. And then I was able to do this without pulling the tensioner back off. I just kind of worked the chain up into place and pushed that back onto its pivot pin up there. And so we're all good. I'm going to wait to pull that. I'm going to do one more once around. Make sure everything's lined up where it's supposed to be. That one's good. That one's good. Make sure we're everywhere we need to be on the guides. Looking good. And then I'll go ahead and pull this pin. And then we're on. And there's your timing. Now just all the work of putting silicone and... Alright, somehow I erased my footage when I was editing, but I gotta show you guys this here. It's the next step in the process. Installing the variable valve timing solenoid housings. So you're going to have two of these, 1, 2, and each one's going to have 3 bolts and an O-ring on the face where it meets the cylinder head. These bolts are going to be torqued to 89 inch-pounds or 7.4 foot-pounds. And basically, if you forget to put these in right now and you put the timing cover on, you'd have to remove the whole entire timing cover again. So I want to make sure nobody makes that mistake. So again, before you actually install the timing cover, be sure to reinstall your variable valve timing solenoid housings. And I couldn't really find a sequence on these, so I just started with this middle bolt and then did the 2 outer. And again, that's 89 inch-pounds, 7.4 foot-pounds. So just been rolling along the past 2-3 hours here. Got the timing cover bolted back on, that front engine mount bracket there bolted back on, and wanted to show you guys the sequence here. Hopefully you can get a good clearer picture of that there. So that's the tightening sequence for this engine. I'll go ahead and hold it there for you for a minute. So the center here is actually that engine mount bracket. So those are the last bolts. So what I did is I left that bracket out. I went ahead and did my first torque step that I'll talk about here in a minute, going in sequence without that in my way. And then I went ahead and put that in. It made the second torque sequence really tricky, but I was able to do it. I just really had to work at it. But here's the torque sequence here. So I don't know if my camera's dirty a little here. Let me try to clean that. thing. I think everything's dirty after working on this thing so much. So timing cover bolts. Step 1, bolts 1 through 22 on that little diagram that I just showed. It's 89 inch-pounds or 7.5 foot-pounds. Or was it 10? I don't remember. You guys will have to do the conversion. Anyways, I converted it. And then 23 through 35 is 133 inch-pounds or 11 foot-pounds. So that's the first step. And then at that point, that's when I put that middle bracket on. And I just went ahead and tightened those nice and tight. You honestly can't even fit a torque wrench in there, even with the standard depth socket. So I just tightened them and used a couple wrenches to wrench down, and just went down tight to this 55 foot-pounds roughly, just by feel, just by hand, without a torque wrench, because it's impossible to fit it in there. I mean, in a perfect world, this thing would be out of the car and you could just go to town on it. So step 2 though, on the other bolts, so that's when I did this to the 18 foot-pounds. And you want to show me that picture again? So I went ahead and I did that sequence again, starting down in the middle, working your way up in a cross pattern until you got to the very last bolts. And then I rechecked my engine mount bracket bolts and they were nice and tight. But again, it was just by feel. That was the only way I could get in there. And as far as the silicone on that, when I silicone that, I actually put it on the block, not on the cover, because with all this stuff in the way, you know, if I had taken this AC line out of the way and this reservoir out of the way, all the wiring, I probably could have just slid it nice and straight down in there and not touch anything, not touch the silicone. But there, I could look at it, and there I actually did a dry run without actually putting silicone on yet, just to see how hard it was going to be to get that cover back in. And it was impossible to not rub that cover face on something when I'm passing it down there. So I just went ahead and put the silicone on the block. Had to lift up the engine, kind of get the spots I could reach, and then I had to let it down, get the other spots, you know, that I couldn't reach with it up, and I just had to work at it. But I went around every bolt hole. I did a nice bead all the way around. I don't know if you can see, but it squished out nice. Then I went ahead and moved on from there to the valve covers. This front one, I actually had to put a little bit of silicone down in the slot for the O-ring, the formed O-ring that goes in there to seal it, all the way around, little dots of it, because it kept wanting to fall out. On this back one, it was nice because the angle, I could see right under there and tell that it hadn't fallen off and it wanted to stay. But as always, anytime you have a break in the case, or like where the head meets the block or the oil pan meets the block, you want to put a little dab of silicone there. Of course, on this one, we put silicone all the way around that face of that timing cover. But I did a dab here and a dab on the back on both these valve cover gaskets. And then I didn't really bother with the sequence. I just kind of went around in a pattern, X pattern, and worked my way around tightening these until they were like hand tight. And then I torqued those down to the 10 inch-pounds, or 10 newton meters, I mean, so 7.5 foot-pounds, and just left it at that. And put in my coils, of course. That's all self-explanatory. So now I've still got to put on my harmonic balancer, but I still have to go get the installer tool for that. Alright, I went ahead and re-cleaned this. I had oiled it before I put this together, but it had a bunch of junk in there, and I don't want any chunks of whatever in there, so I'm gonna oil that up just with some motor oil. And then I clean this. Kind of tough to see it, but cleaned it and oiled it too. Just try to make sure there's no chunks on there. And then don't forget, you of course got to reuse your washer. I did get the new bolt. There's the Dorman part number for that harmonic balancer bolt. It is a stretch bolt. I'm still gonna have to figure out how to hold this thing from spinning. I'll have to probably use my chain wrench and some thick rubber pad in between it is what I'm planning on doing. Had to go down to O'Reilly's and rent this installer tool kit for doing the harmonic balancer reinstallation. It's a non-keyed press fit harmonic balancer, and I'll take some acetone or brake cleaner and clean this up real good here first before I put it in. But the way it works is you just put it all up there together, screw this in, these threads in where your bolt would go, and then this thing has a little bearing on it here to help you press that guy in there really hard. Took a lot of force to get that thing off, but I'll show you guys when I get to that point. Alright, so it's bigger than a 1 1/8, and that happens to be the biggest wrench I have here at home. My big wrench set's at work. So I'm gonna try to figure out a way to hold this thing here. And then I'm just gonna turn this here. Here's my big crescent. I actually found this big old crescent in the middle of the road about 6 months ago. And then you'll feel it just pressing in there nice and slowly. Just gonna run it in there until it bottoms out. Especially as it goes deeper in there. And there we go. That's it. Not too bad. Alright. There's my marks. They're kind of faint. I don't have a paint pen. That would be optimum here. But I went ahead and tightened it to my 89. I don't have my backup person here to help hold my camera and everything, so couldn't really film it, but I torqued it to 89 foot-pounds, backed it off a turn, and then I, carefully, so I didn't lose my chain wrench here, I actually used my impact to kind of loosen it back up. Then I went to 37 foot-pounds with my smaller torque wrench. Because of where this is at, it's really hard to get in here unless the car was jacked up a lot more than it is. It's tough to get in here to actually do this, so I had to use some long extensions. I hate doing that, but these are pretty stout extensions. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it till my mark on the upper lines up with the one on the right hand side there to additional 90. Okay, I'm going to try the old fabled zip tie trick, and what I did to make it a little easier to get them in there, I kind of curved it around. I pre-curved it. I don't know if I can record this one-handed and get it in there one-handed, but I think you guys get the point. And I'm going to put 2 zip ties there. Oh yeah. On the bottom side there, so I can turn it clockwise, and we'll see if this works. I've seen people do it online. Of course, then you got to somehow reach up there and cut them back off. I figure we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. First off, we got to get the thing on there. If I need to, I can reach down from the top maybe, or from the back even. Once I get the old one off wasn't too horrible actually. For myself, I just kind of pulled on it and started turning it. All right, there it is. It is on. Now I'll turn this back around so I can cut the zip ties off. It worked. Now it's time to do the thermostat. Figure I might as well get it done while I'm doing all this other work. Looks like it probably makes sense to pull this air filter lower box out. Looks like an 8mm right here. And then it looks like it probably just shoves down into the body here. And the thermostat's going to be back behind here. So I'm going to probably end up pulling this hose here and taking out the two 8mm bolts here. And this one has an O-ring that seals it. So it's pretty self-explanatory, really. You're gonna obviously want to make sure that the element side of the new thermostat goes towards the head, but it'll probably only fit one way. I'll show you real quick here what it looks like. And we actually got this from Napa. There's the part number there. Little seal, little O-ring. So this is the side, the copper looking side. That's the element that actually makes it open. So it's going to go in there like that. Not exactly sure where the O-ring goes yet. I'm assuming on the top side here. But pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully it's the right one. I've never looked at one of these yet. Maybe I'll show you guys once I get it out. Alright, after a little more work with the pick, it came off. Let me get that out of the way. I got a deep on here. I think it'll fit. Get these both out. Fuel line's kind of in the way there, but I'm just going to leave that and work around it. And see, this is why I pulled that air cleaner box out of the way. So I had plenty of room here. Based on the size of these bolts, I would say the torque spec is going to be around the 10 Newton meters or 7.4 foot-pounds. I'm going to carefully pry it out of there. Paying attention to which side. So yeah, the O-ring looks like goes on the face of this thing. It's kind of stuck in there. Oh yeah, look at that thing. Yeah, that thing was shot. It's got this little tiny flippy brass nub here. I always try to put that up. That lets the little air bubbles go by it so that it can fully immerse the back end here where the element is with the coolant and allow it to open properly. Looks good in there. I dropped my little rubber seal. Might be gone forever. Yeah. So a little flippy nub. This one doesn't have that rubber seal on it like the old one did. Put that little nub facing up so the air bubble can escape. Put your O-ring in there. Kind of an odd way to seal it. Okay, that looks good. And I don't think I could fit my torque wrench in here if I wanted to, so. Looks as though it's got that little chamfer there on the front. That's probably there to help push that O-ring out so that it seals. That way that can wedge in there. You can see the little gap in there. I'm going to try to tighten it slowly. And start out as even as I can so that it has a better chance of wedging that O-ring out properly. There's no way I'll fit my torque wrench in here, so I'm just going to get these tight. You can see the little clamp locked open here. So what I do, take a little screwdriver here and relieve the pressure off of the little clamp piece and then just kind of wedge that in between it. Once you get it up in place, of course. Then, like I said earlier, you want to get this thing even with where it used to be on the old little compressed spot, so it's less likely to seep out of there when you're done. Alright, time to torque this guy. So here's bolt 1. And just go around in stages here. I kind of brought them down hand tight. So here's bolt 2. Bolt 3. Oh, that one clicked on me already. Bolt 4. Bolt 5. Bolt 6. And this is to the kind of expected 7.4 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go back around. So bolt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we got that little support bracket bolt there we got to tighten still. I'll just do that one by hand. Alright, and that's the torque sequence. So it's torqued down, put the brand new gaskets in there. And then we gotta reinstall this guy. Goes on like that. That goes on like that, and then I still gotta hook on my 2 hose clamps in the back there. Those were kind of a pain to get to. And then this one goes on the lower. It's got the little clip. And then this one went like that. Make sure it's clicked in all the way on this back one. And then these go back in. These are kind of all busted up from someone previous working on it. Then we've got this coolant line that's got to go back in. Those are all busted out, but oh well. Alright, getting close, getting dangerously close now. I'm going to get these 2 back lines on. It's that clamp back there on the PCV line. And then I'm assuming that's for the brake booster vacuum line there. Can't really record it with one hand and get it on with one hand, so you guys get the picture though. Alright, it's all together. Time to start it.
Oh, are you ready?
Go ahead.
You start.
Ooh, yeah. Sounds smooth, doesn't it? Yeah. Sounds like it should. It's always a good thing after you do a major repair like that when it actually runs.
Yeah. Wow. And that sounds good.
Yeah, and we'll just let that burp, let it warm up. Probably going to be a good size air pocket in there. Keep that loose, you just don't want to forget that's loose. But we'll go ahead and we'll recheck the oil. Okay. Although I did use up that whole 5-quart jug of oil you got.
How big is it? Good, it took all 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think
Sounds
it's
good.
I think it said it would take 5 quarts, right?
I'm not hearing any. Oh, I never looked it up. I don't hear any vacuum leaks or anything. You got the new belts, new plugs. But the only thing we could have done that we didn't was to clean the mass airflow sensor. Yeah, it sounds good though.
Yeah, it is. Good.